Glad you made it to our third video in this series. I hope you are as excited as I am to show you how you can use a different strategy and get a different result, all allowing you to be in control of your financial path. Today, we are going to put it all together. We are going to talk about your financial journey. We're going to have a case study where we're going to look at some actual numbers, but don't worry, I'm not going to show too much math, so don't be too scared. And we're going to talk about the myth of the average return. And you are going to be amazed of the difference to what people think they're getting and to what they're actually getting. It is going to surprise you. And then we will end, well, how can you use the infinite banking concept with your vault so you can become financially independent? Now let's get started. I like to equate your financial journey to climbing a mountain. And when I talk to most people about their financial climb, their goal is to reach the top. But is that the ultimate goal? If you are looking for a guide to take you up to the top of the mountain, and he had 100% success rate getting you to the top, would you hire him? However, is that your ultimate goal, to get to the top? Well, once you get there, what are you going to do? Don't you need to climb down safely? And what if you ask that same guide if he or she could take you down safely? He's like, well, you know what? My goal is just to get you to the top. Once you get up there, you're on your own. Would you still hire that guide? I would think not. But what if we equate this to like you financially? What we're going to talk about today is about accumulating and climbing up the mountain. However, we do have some other videos that will show you how to safely walk down the mountain. Now, when most people are climbing up the mountain, their goal is growth. They want to have as much money as they can when they get to the top. Now, we're going to come back to the financial journey, but first, let's dive a little deeper into your goals. Now, let's take a look at most people's goals. When they're climbing up that mountain, their goal is going to be growth. And where do they typically look for that growth? Well, that's going to be in the market. And to be honest, that's what I first originally did. I did that when I started working. I put money in my IRA, 401k. But what we're going to do is let's take a look at what the investment returns and what the investor returns. That might sound a little different, but the investment is going to be the market, and the investor is going to be you. And most people would think, well, yeah, I hear the market got 9%, so I'm expecting I'm going to have 9%. And then if the market loses 20%, then I think, well, I lost 20%. You're going to be amazed of the difference between what the investment earns and what you actually end up with. So let's take a look. Now we are going to go over a case study and at the same time break the myth of the average return. What we're going to do is we're going to take an individual who's 35 years old, is going to work about another 30 more years, and then they're going to retire. Now, in order to do that, this individual is going to save $20,000 a year. And what we're going to do is we're going to put $20,000 into the market, and we're going to compare that to using the infinite banking concept and the vault. So let's do the math and see what it looks like. Now here, what I did is I took a life insurance illustration, and then I designed it the way I would design your policy to maximize the cash value and to minimize the death benefit. A couple things I want to point out here. In this example, we're putting in $20,000 until this individual is 65. Now, you don't have to do that. You could turn the deposits off sooner, or you can keep doing it later. This is very flexible because we really don't know at what age you want to retire and at what dollar amount you're going to need. So we need to develop a plan that is flexible with your situation. Now, if you notice at the beginning here, we put in 20,000, and here's the cash value. This is when you may have heard me talk about is that we come to a slow start. It's not until the second to third year where your cash value grows by more than what you had put in. Now, this is a serious question that only you can answer. Are you focused on short-term results or long-term results? Now, when I ask that somebody, they always say, "Well, I'm focused on the long term." Well, actually, everybody has except for one person, and she was dead set on short-term results. But however, she was 75 years old, so I'm going to give her a pass. Now, if you're focused on the short term, then really just stop the video now, because this strategy is not going to help you. You're not going to be happy with it. Now, however, if you're focused on the long-term results, if you stay tuned, you're going to be amazed at the power that your vault can have. So let's take a look. Now, if we were to do the math and say that you put in 20,000 all these years, and we're going to go down to your 75, you'd have in your vault 1.9 million bucks. In order to get that, it's the equivalent of earning 4.34%. Okay. Now, what we're going to do, so this is what your vault is actually returning, but let's look at what it feels like. Now, let's compare this to something else. We're going to compare it to the market. So in this case, let's do this. We're going to compare this as if you had put the same $20,000 in a totally separate account or investment. And we're going to be earning the exact same amount. What you're going to see is that you have the same dollar amount, $1.9 million. However, there's a couple things that your vault is not showing. So we need to account for that. For one, it's not taking into account management fees. Do you think your financial planner in Wall Street in general is a non-for-profit? Just the opposite. They are a big for-profit. So we need to account for the management fees, whether that's to your financial planner and or the mutual fund company and all the expenses in there. And I can show you reports that those fees really are closer to 5 or 6. But you know what? Let's be conservative. And let's say that the management fees are 2.5%. At the beginning, 2.5% doesn't sound like too much. It's only $500. But you look in the next year, it actually doubles. And it continues to go up and up. And that's because that management fee is not based on your contribution or what you're depositing. It's based on your ending balance. So as you add more money and there's growth, so do the management fees. And if we scroll down to when you're 75, you're paying almost $25,000 a year in management fees. Now, if you notice one thing else that's different, what happened to, we had 1.9 a second ago. Watch this. If I take out the management fee, we have 1.9 million. We add just a small 2.5% management fee, and we lost $1 million. Let me just rephrase that. You put in a 2.5 management fee, and you lost 50% of your cash. Does that sound fair? It is what it is, because it is happening. And imagine if we use a more accurate number and use something 3, 4, or 5%. There's another thing that your vault is not accounting for, and that's going to be taxes. Because if you compare this to the market, you're going to have to pay taxes. You put in a 401k, maybe you're not going to pay the taxes till later, but you are going to pay taxes. And let's say, before we go into taxes, now, if you look down here, your alternate account or your market account would have to earn 7% every single year without a down year just to equal what you have in the vault. How realistic do you think that is? Well, let's take a look at the taxes. If we just assume you're in the 25% tax bracket, now your account has to earn 8.49% to pay the IRS and to pay Wall Street, and just to equal what we have inside of your vault. Now, also, one thing we didn't talk about your vault is this column right here. This is your death benefit. Even though we try to minimize the death benefit as much as the IRS will allow, you know what? You're still going to have death benefit. And what's very powerful is look at your death benefit. It's constantly increasing. It started out at 800, and 15 years later, your death benefit has doubled. So if you have $1.6 million in permanent insurance, you think it's fair that you wouldn't need as much term insurance? Oops. So let's take a look at the impact of you having to pay term insurance. Because really, doesn't typical financial advice tell you to buy term and invest the difference? And that is what this is going to do. Now, if we just had term insurance, now your market account would have to earn 9.99%. And is it okay if I round it to 10? So you'd have to earn 10% every single year without a down year to pay for the IRS, your term insurance, and a Wall Street, just to equal what you had inside your vault. And in addition, just talking about the death benefit, what happens to term after you're 65? The death benefit goes away. What happens to the death benefit inside your vault? Well, when you're 65, it's 2.2 million. And you know what? It continues to go up and up every single year. Now, how realistic do you think it is that your market account can do 10% every single year? Okay, now let's go back to our comparison. So if based on those numbers, our investment or our policy return was 4.3%. But really, when you take into account everything, it's actually more like 10% because you didn't have to pay taxes, management fees, and term insurance. Now, let's compare it to what people are earning in the market, or your 401k. And we got the average over the last 20 years is 8.2%. So now you may be thinking, well, 8.2 is almost double what I'm getting in my vault. But remember, we need to look at the rest of the story. Now, we need to want to focus at what does the investor actually end up with. And when we account for fees, taxes, and emotion, now with emotion, where we're going to go to is we've gotten these numbers was from the Dalbar, and they do an analysis of what the market actually did and what investors actually did. And what's going to be the difference are not just fees and taxes, but emotion. People typically will get in and out on the wrong time because they are scared. So you have to take everything into account. Like right here, this is from the Dalbar. Now they're comparing what the S&P did compared to what the average equity investor did. And what's going to blow your mind is that overall during this time, the overall S&P with a fully allocated portfolio was 8.2%. Okay, not bad. But did you catch the difference between these green and these red bars? The green is what the market did, and the red is what the investor did or ended up with after paying taxes and fees. So the investor only ended with 2.11%. Now, I know this may be hard to believe. I will tell you that I realized this firsthand when I was following typical financial advice. And I remember going into my financial planner's office, and then he would write on the whiteboard, he'd list all of my mutual funds and then how each one of those mutual funds did. And I say, oh, that one was 10%, that one's 20, that one's 5. And I'm like, man, I'd look at those, I'm like, man, I am doing good. I can't wait to see my statement. I bet my statement is going to be so much bigger. But when I looked at it, it was too hard to really average all those numbers out. But those numbers seemed a lot higher than the actual growth in my account. And that's because of all of the management fees and taxes. Now, so the investment is actually returning 8.2. However, you are only getting 2.1. And to be honest, if you notice, I only did the last 20 years. I was going to do 30 because that's what we were comparing this individual putting away for 30 years. But those numbers, you think this is bad, the 30-year period was even worse. And I thought if I use those numbers that you would not believe me. But I ask you, Google yourself, Google Dalbar, and you can get the same report that we looked at as well. Now, in summary of this, we think we're getting 4.3, but we're actually getting 10%. And what makes it more interesting, you know that we had talked about in some of the other videos of using your vault. In this example, we're not doing anything. All we're doing is letting that money sit there. But imagine, what if you took some of that cash value and invested it somewhere? Maybe in some bridge loans, maybe life settlements, or maybe rental real estate. And then now with all of those gains, where are you going to put it? Couldn't you put it back into your vault and then continue to use it again and again? So these numbers here are just if we're not doing anything. But really, if you want to take full advantage of the infinite banking concept, we want you to act like a bank and be able to put that money to use. But now here, our money is doing two things. It is in your vault earning interest and dividends, but it's also outside earning whatever your investment is. So imagine if your money is working twice as hard, do you think you could either retire sooner or maybe find a job that you love as opposed to one that you're just doing for the money? Or maybe when you do retire, wouldn't you have more money if your money is working harder for you? Okay. Now we're going to cover the problems that we first talked about in the first video. And that is the two problems why systems and products that most people are using are not helping them grow wealth. The first problem is money that fails to compound fails to make you financially independent. And we covered how powerful the compound interest curve can be. However, most people break it because they either spend money or they have an investment loss. However, with the infinite banking concept and with the controlled leverage, we can use that money for short-term and long-term without ever breaking the compound interest curve. The second problem was money that flows away from you fails to make you financially independent. We talked a lot about how money always flow into a bank. However, with your own vault, you can again use that collateral controlled leverage that will allow you to be in control. And instead of that money flowing to banks or other financial institutions, that money can flow to you. Now we're going to end with your financial journey. And what we had talked about is that when you're climbing up that mountain, a lot of people are focused on the accumulation and the growth. And that is important, but it's not the entire thing. We also want to be able to safely climb down the mountain. And I know that this video or series was just focused on accumulating, but however, when we're accumulating or going up the mountain, we need to start packing gear so we can climb down the mountain. For example, if all of your gear is just going to help you up and it's not going to help you come down, what are you going to do when you're up there? You're going to have to sell or you're going to have to exchange your gear with somebody else so you can safely go down the mountain. But what happens if they don't have a REI up there or a place where you can buy the equipment? How are you going to get down? That's why it's important that we pack our bags from the beginning of the trip to take us all the way till the end. And what is awesome is that the infinite banking concept and your vault can be an amazing way to turn into income when you need it. Thus, you don't need to wait till you're 59 and a half to use your money. And in fact, when you do decide to use it, it's going to come out completely income tax free. I hope you enjoyed our webinar series. If you're like me, I'm sure you have some questions, and that's what we are here for. So I encourage you, you can call us, send me an email, or you can go directly and schedule a free consultation where we can talk about and we can answer your questions and see if this is right for you. This is not right for everybody. So let's just have a talk and see if you and I are a good fit and see how and if we can incorporate this and so you can strategically grow your wealth. Now go make it a fantastic day.